Ooh, I love that one.
Right.
Okay.
Now, it might seem a little late for New Year's motivation, but trust me,
Oh, for sure.
this video goes way beyond just, setting resolutions.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
really about finding, meaning and purpose all year round.
It's like he's having this conversation with the past year,
Mm.
reflecting on everything.
Yeah, and what really struck me was his metaphor of the 4 seasons
Oh, yeah.
for, different phases of life.
Oh, it's so powerful. You can really visualize it, right? Like winter,
Yeah,
he describes it as this, barren wasteland, which sounds harsh, but it's about introspection.
right, stripping away what's not working.
Exactly, that pruning to make way for new growth.
And he has this great line, dreams are planted beneath the frozen soil.
Ooh, I love that.
Even when things feel dormant, there's that potential.
It makes you think, right? When you felt stuck or lost.
So-
What helped you see those new beginnings? Did you have to, let go of something first?
That's a great question for everyone listening. Then, of course, we move into spring,
Ah,
which Pinero calls this time of pulsating hope, right?
yes.
Where those seeds from winter start to sprout.
You can almost feel that shift, can't you? Both inside and out.
For sure. That lightness, the sense of possibility.
Exactly.
And as spring turns to summer, things really start flourishing.
Yeah, that's when you see the results of the work.
The achievement, pushing boundaries, coming into your own.
You're reaping what you sowed, right. But Pinheiro also reminds us, even in the midst of that abundance,
Yeah.
stay focused on the work that feels right, not just chasing external validation.
Oh, absolutely. He has this line, I wrote it down. You can control how much of yourself you give to the world, but you cannot control how that's received by the world.
It's so freeing, isn't it? Takes the pressure off.
Totally. Then we move into fall. Pinheiro talks about gratitude and letting go, like trees shedding their leaves, making way for new growth.
It's such a beautiful metaphor for life.
It is. Each season has its purpose. And speaking of nature, there's this really interesting part where he talks about the desert.
Oh, yeah, that's where it gets really cool.
At first, it seems so empty and desolate, but Pinheiro sees this hidden beauty,
Yeah.
immense power.
He says just being there can change your life.
He does. He describes it so vividly. The way the sun rises over those mountains, the clearest skies, that blanket of stars overhead.
You can almost feel it, right?
Totally. And then he connects the desert to those challenging experiences in life.
The hard thing, as he calls it.
Yes. Just like the desert's harshness reveals hidden wonders, those hard things push us to grow.
It makes you think, has there been a time in your life that felt like a desert? Like a loss, a setback.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's amazing how often those lead to the most growth.
Like going through fire to come out stronger.
Exactly. And he gives some great examples. Michael Jordan getting cut from his high school team. That one always sticks with me.
And his friend, who paid thousands to learn from this entrepreneur, only to be totally let down.
But what's interesting is Pinheiro doesn't see these as failures, more like necessary steps.
Right. He even says, the hard thing brought me through hell, but also to that which exists on the other side.
It's like you can't appreciate the highs without the lows,
Absolutely. And that brings us to another key theme, the power of belief.
Yeah.
He's a big believer that we limit ourselves.
Oh, for sure. We underestimate what we're capable of.
Totally. He says, and I'm quoting here, so many of us need this. There's a tendency to put other people we don't know, people we know nothing about, on a pedestal and see ourselves as perpetual outsiders looking in.
It's like we're constantly comparing ourselves and coming up short.
Right. And that's where the focusing illusion comes in.
Oh,
I just talked about how this cognitive bias can make us overemphasize things, which can actually hurt our happiness.
Like that study with the college students.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They asked about their happiness in dating lives. And just focusing on dating first actually brought down their overall happiness ratings.
Wow. So what we focus on really does shape our reality.
He does. He says, you get what you focus on. It's that simple. And the truth is, nothing is as important as we think it is. Everything is magnified, kind of blown out of proportion in our minds.
It's about shifting our focus, right?
Yeah.
To the things that actually matter.
Exactly. And this leads us to Pinheiro's father and the S&P 500 analogy.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, that analogy really makes you think, It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day ups and downs.
Especially when progress is slow.
Exactly, but Pinero's dad is basically saying, like, zoom out, look at the bigger picture.
Right. Just like the stock market. There will be dips, but the overall trend is what matters.
It is. It's about having that investor mindset Pinero talks about.
Yeah, don't panic and sell when things get rough.
Ride it out. Trust the process.
He even compares it to Warren Buffett, saying, what is perhaps the most important piece in the famous book, The Intelligent Investor? What is the idea that made Buffett a billionaire? It's that you invest in things you believe in, and you remove the emotion. You hold the dips.
Wow, that's powerful.
It's about having faith in yourself, in your vision.
Even when that inner critic starts piping up.
Oh, tell me about it. That voice can be so loud.
Especially when you're trying something new, pushing yourself.
Tero says it perfectly. The cost of waiting is far more expensive than the cost of stepping out into the vast unknown.
Ooh, I like that.
It's scarier to stay stuck,
It is. You're paying a price for playing it safe.
And sometimes we even use busyness as a way to avoid facing those fears,
Oh, 100%. We keep ourselves distracted so we don't have to deal with the hard stuff.
Exactly. But Pinero's saying be honest with yourself.
Acknowledge the fears and then move through them.
He even suggests that sometimes the bigger regret isn't making the wrong choice, but not even considering other options.
That's interesting. It's like we're so afraid of messing up that we don't even explore.
And I think that's where trusting the process comes in.
Yeah.
Letting go of the need to control everything, accepting there will be bumps along the way.
It's a journey, right?
He says there are no wrong paths, just different routes to different destinations.
And sometimes those destinations are even better than we imagine.
Totally. He also uses this analogy of a house of cards.
Oh, yeah. What was it? Something about how there are infinite ways to reach your goals.
Yeah. He says, what makes the journey divine is the infinite number of paths that can bring about its materialization. It's not about one specific card, it's the whole hand.
I love that.
It is. It's about the bigger picture.
And even when you feel lost or uncertain,
Yeah.
those feelings are temporary.
He does. He says the dips, the lows, and the losses only have significance if we give them significance. Otherwise, they're just a few stops along the way to something beautiful. It's all about how we choose to see things.
Right. Setbacks or opportunities for growth.
And he concludes this thought beautifully. I think I even wrote it down. Hold on.
I love it when you do that.
Okay, here it is. He asks, so why exhaust energy on data points that haven't arrived yet? On destinations in the future, destinations that we trust ourselves to figure out anyway? Our emphasis should be on the present moment, on gratitude for the fact that we get to wake up and choose the pursuits that we've chosen.
Wow, so powerful.
It's like, let go of the worry about the future
Be present, be grateful for what you have now.
and that freedom to choose your own path.
Create a life that truly reflects who you are.
He talks about how aligning your actions with your values can be tough.
It is. It takes a lot of self-reflection.
And honesty, being willing to let go of things that aren't serving you.
Like you did with those 2 businesses.
Right. He says, I closed the door on 2 businesses last year. Not because they weren't successful or didn't have potential, because they did, but because they didn't, in any capacity, light me up.
So brave to walk away from something successful because it wasn't fulfilling.
It's about more than just external validation.
It's about building a life that feels right for you, even if it's hard.
And sometimes that means embracing uncertainty.
Like going through a barren wasteland, as Pinero puts it.
He does. He uses this analogy about trees shedding their leaves.
Right, letting go of what no longer serves them.
He asks, imagine if perfection was the goal. Imagine if we cared more about maintaining an outward appearance than doing what set our souls ablaze.
Wow.
It's about embracing the messiness of growth,
Yeah, that's where the real magic happens.
It is. Before we move on, there's one last thought from Pinero that really stuck with me.
Oh, I'm all ears.
He talks about how each season brought a different element of truth, of life and growth. Every moment, no matter how fleeting, played a role in the symphony of our ascent to the heavens.
It's like every experience contributes to the richness of our journey.
Exactly. And on that note, let's take a quick break and come back for the final part of our deep dive. Welcome back. So we've been exploring Eddie Pinero's letter to 2024. And, throughout this whole thing, he keeps coming back to this idea of trusting the process. Like having the guts to build a life that truly aligns with what you believe in.
Right, and even challenging us to think about those hard things we might be facing right now.
Yeah, he literally asks, what is one hard thing you're facing right now? And how can you embrace it as an opportunity for transformation?
Ooh, that's deep.
It is. It's like instead of seeing challenges as roadblocks,
Yeah.
He's saying, what if they're actually like stepping stones?
I like that, yeah, stepping stones on the path to becoming who you're meant to be.
Exactly. And he also has this great quote where he says, life doesn't hand you meaning on a silver platter. It must be pursued.
It's true. You have to actively create a life that feels meaningful.
And sometimes that means making some tough choices like Pinheiro did with his businesses.
Right, he talks about closing down 2 of them.
He says, I closed the door on 2 businesses last year, not because they weren't successful or didn't have potential, because they did, but because they didn't, in any capacity, light me up.
It's powerful, right? Choosing fulfillment over just like appearing successful.
Totally. It's about like what truly lights you up inside.
And that takes courage to walk away from something that looks good on paper.
It does. And sometimes that means embracing uncertainty.
Which Pinheiro compares to like wandering through a barren wasteland.
Yeah, he uses this image of trees shedding their leaves in the fall.
Oh, right.
He says, imagine if perfection was the goal. Imagine if we cared more about maintaining an outward appearance than doing what set our souls ablaze.
So instead of clinging to what's no longer serving you,
Yeah.
you got to let go to make room for something new.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? You have to take care of yourself to be able to give to others.
Absolutely. And I think that's what Pinheiro is getting at here.
Yeah.
Like, the whole point is to embrace the journey, the ups and downs,
Trusting the process, having the courage to build a life that feels true to you.
and remembering that even when it's hard, it's worth it.
He leaves us with one final thought. He says, our light shines brightest when we leave the city and carve out our own paths.
Ooh, I love that.
It's about finding your own way, you know?
Yeah, sharing your unique gifts with the world.
Exactly. So that's it for our deep dive into Eddie Pinheiro's letter to 2024.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Me too. And for everyone listening, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep shining your light.